What up, y'all? It's your boy Purely Deaf, your favorite deaf rapper. I wanted to make a video basically kind of talking about some thoughts that have been going on in my mind in terms of battle rap. And the reason I haven't made this video up until this point is because in the back of my mind, like, I'm always thinking, okay, who are you? Obviously, I'm not Loaded Lux, I'm not Murder Mook, I'm not Geechee Gotti, I'm not whoever. I'm nobody, right? If your opinion is that because, I am not famous or whatever, I have no perspective to offer on battle rap, then I feel that's perfectly valid. You have at any time the ability to turn this off and move on and just ignore it altogether. That being said, there's a word for that that's called an ad hominem attack. You're attacking an argument, but you're discrediting the argument based on a personal attribute of, rather than discrediting the argument itself. So for example, if I were to say 12 times 12 is equal to 144 and you say well, that can't be true, you had a D in math. It could be very well be true that I had a D in math, but that doesn't necessarily mean that 12 times 12 is not equal to 144. If you were a scientist or a mathematician and your goal was to disprove that 12 times 12 is equal to 144, you're not allowed to say that, right? That's not a valid argument. It's not a logical argument. You have to, counter that argument. You have to explain why 12 times 12 is not equal to 144. You have to come up with a proof that, actually disproves that. I welcome anybody who wants to basically refute my argument as far as like my perspective and the way that I, look at punchlines. What I don't welcome is that, oh, you're nobody, therefore, you don't have a valid opinion. That's just not a good argument, right? So real quick, let me give you a little bit of background about myself. I started when I was 12 years old, rapping. It was, we had, battles, but they weren't really, what we call battling today at, by any means. We started like, I used to just hang out with, kids at the cafeteria. They would, drop a beat on the table and we would just freestyle about whatever. And then occasionally, we'll be dissing each other. But they weren't very, sophisticated punchlines. It was all freestyle. It was all off the top. And that's kind of what battle rap was back then, right? This is what, 2001, 2002, something like that. So back then, battling was it's not nearly as popular as it is now. And the format that exists today did not exist back then. This whole like pre-written, punchline heavy, basically spoken word a cappella style battle rap that we have today did not exist back when I first started out. I got onto text forms around the time that I was 13, so then that's when I learned what multis were. That's when I learned, how to write a punchline. And you have to understand, especially this video is partly for people that are younger. Back then, the scene for battle rap was very, 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 very small, right? So I'm talking 2002, 2003, 2004, the biggest, battles that had really happened were like Supernatural versus Juice on the Wake Up Show. And, this was, still very underground. Most people had never, paid attention to that stuff. Obviously, you had Freestyle Friday that was more mainstream, but Freestyle Friday was a sideshow, right? It was just a thing they did on Fridays for about like 2 minutes. And then they went back to the real show, right? Back then, when you wanted to get on Freestyle Friday, you usually wanted to get onto Freestyle Friday to showcase your rapping ability so you can get signed and become a real rapper with a label. Even when, Jin went and, won all these battles, it was like, okay, now we're going to sign him to Rough Rider and see if he can actually make it. The idea that you could, make a living off of rap battling and that you could, have a rap battle, one individual battle, and make $10,000 was completely unheard of. Nowadays, it's actually possible. It's still very rare, but I'm trying to drive home the point that very few people really cared about rap battling back then. People on rap forums are some of the few people that did care about rap battling back then. Around 2002, when Smack DVD first came out, they were, centered around rap. They had nothing to do with battling in their first couple volumes. I think it was the third volume they had the first like real rap battle that they included. But again, it was a sideshow, right? It wasn't the thing. It was, oh, we have the thing, but you can also enjoy this rap battling, thing if you care. When Smack DVD started getting more focused on battles, then you started seeing, number one, you see more a cappella battles. Obviously, they're filming out in the street, so this is a lot more of a different environment than, Freestyle Friday where they're on a stage, or even Wake Up Show, they're on a stage. Now you're just literally filming people on the corner rapping. And that's, a whole different environment. It's just a different gritty feel to it that, was missing from battle rap prior to that. And I think that gravitated even more people to want to be in that art form. But, in order to go viral, right, you have to have online content, and you also have to have people, a community of people that are sharing that online content. And that's kind of where rap battling forums came in. Rap battling forums are kind of the catalyst for what got rap battling to where it is now in terms of popularity. So just to give you an idea of how small the battle rap scene was, one of my earliest mentors who I met online through a rap forum was Hemisphere. And Hemisphere was in the 2007 WRCs in the Atlanta division, and his partner was Direct. And Direct is the person who created Grind Time. And Grind Time is definitely the reason why, why Smack DVD stopped being Smack DVD and became URL Online, right? Grind Time, without a doubt, reshaped all of battle rap as we know it. And in the WRC tournament is a big part of that transition as well. And there are a lot of people who are still very popular today, but they were in the WRCs in 2007. So, you have Marv One, you have Immaculate Thesaurus, you have Nestle. I don't remember everybody. I think Hollow was in it. Hollow the Don was in the WRCs as well. And even Organic like people that went on to create KOTD and create Don't Flop. It was a very transformative time. I think battle rap is one of those things where people see it and they think, okay, I can do that. To an extent, that is kind of true because we kind of removed a lot of the confinements that battle rap used to have in the Scribble Jam era, right? You no longer have to know how to flow on a beat in order to battle rap. That is a very, important aspect of being able to rap, right? Nobody really cares about your flow in an acapella format. That's not to say that it isn't advantageous to have a good flow, but I have seen so many battle rappers who have no flow whatsoever, and still nobody cares, right? It's not really a relevant factor. As long as you can deliver heavy haymakers or whatever, then your flow isn't that important. And then the other thing is that they removed, the freestyle aspect of it, so you no longer have to train yourself to freestyle. Anybody can pre-write. Now, whether you can pre-write good or not, that's completely different. But anybody can write something, memorize it, and then just rap it, right? A lot of people, I feel like, just feel like they can do it and do it well. And so that, it kind of goes both ways, right? On the bright side, it did bring a lot of people into battle rap. On the negative side, I think it brought a lot of people into battle rap that want to be battle rappers, and then there aren't really a lot of fans. And that has always been kind of like the problem with battle rap is that everybody wants to be the performer. Nobody wants to be the person watching the performer. I would say that the majority of people who go to, the average rap battling event that's like a local event, not talking about URL or whatever, that usually those people are also battle rappers themselves. I do feel that there's kind of a disconnect in terms of the new generation of not just battle rap, but rap in general. And the old generation of battle rap and rap in general. In the older generation, there was a pretty heavy emphasis on mentorship, right? And there's a term that's called being a student of the game. And generally, in order to be a student, you have to have a teacher. And yeah, you can go back and study and you can listen to, Jay-Z, Biggie, whoever, and, kind of study what they do. But there's also an element of being a student of the game where you have to have, somebody who is more experienced than you, who is giving you feedback on, things that you're coming up with, and also just kind of giving you, showing you the ropes. And a lot of people, I feel like in the new generation, were never really shown the ropes. They kind of jumped in and just started doing it. And that's fine. I mean, some people are incredibly good at it, but then they only get that kind of perspective. They only get that perspective that they see in front of them, never having anybody else saying, oh, this is how I interpret what's going on. I remember there was a video on YouTube. It was somebody that broke down like an Eminem verse, and it was like Lose Yourself, I think. And he was basically kind of talking about all the different rhymes, like, oh, this word rhymes with that rhyme, and that one rhymes with that rhyme. And this is why Eminem has the most, complex, patterns in rap. And anybody who's a even decent writer in rap knows that Eminem was just doing multis, right? Yeah, there were some internal multis as well, but nothing about what the lyricism of it, nothing about the rhyme schemes is particularly, more complex than anything else that you could have found from Biggie. And even Biggie doesn't use a lot of multis, but he uses a lot of intricate rhyme schemes. And at the end of the day, the video was basically like why Eminem has the most complex rhyme schemes of all time, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it shines a light on how, that perspective can really make a difference in terms of what you're seeing, what you think you're seeing, because, this person looked at an Eminem verse. He did his research. That's, he was a student of the game, would do their research on a particular song and breaking down all these different rhymes and everything and the meanings and so forth. But at the end of the day, the thing that they got out of it was incorrect because they were never given the tools of, oh, this is what a multi is, and this is actually pretty common, and the ability to have listened to thousands and thousands of other hip hop songs that do the same thing. And so the argument that they're making is that it's a very complex, rhyme scheme when really it's not that much different than what other people do. So what I'm trying to say is that perspective matters. Having an OG who can break things down for you and explain, things that you didn't already know, whether that be about history, whether that be about like what a certain artist is doing in a song that, you might not have ascertained from that themselves. And the same thing goes with battle rap. If you don't have that, you're going to be lacking some sort of understanding that you otherwise could have. I think that pretty much everybody wants the ability to say that they're the greatest writer of all time. I think the majority of people probably couldn't tell you in words, what makes their writing or punchlines different than everybody else's. They might give you buzzwords that don't really mean anything, like, oh, I have the most creative bars, and that's not really saying a whole lot. I mean, creativity at the end of the day is saying something that nobody else has ever said, but then everything has been said. So really it comes down to, are you saying something that other people have not heard? And I've been around again for 20 years, so I've seen a lot of different concepts done. And yes, creativity is definitely a big part of what makes a really good bar, but it's not everything. There's more to it. Okay, so what do you have to offer apart from creativity, right? And that's when it comes down to execution, like how well you execute your lines. And my philosophy with writing punchlines in particular, because this is really the bread and butter of what I like to do. There's other ways to battle. You have people who do schemes and people who do grind time style multis, people who do real rap, struggle rap, all kinds of different styles, and I love that. I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to say that everybody should write like I write or that everybody should just be like a puncher. But, when we are talking about punchlines, my philosophy is that, your job is as a writer to emulate the way that people actually talk, right? Like, so this rant kind of stems from a debate that I had with Death the Kid, talking about a line from, I think it was Hollow to Dawn, that said, I'm paraphrasing here, the blazer will turn his insides out like Will Smith. He actually said the blazer will turn his insides out like the old Will. He's referring to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So anybody who has watched, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I've seen every episode. Anybody who's watched it knows, this is, I think, first season. I don't know what episode it was, but it was one of the first episodes. He went to like a prep school and, he had to wear a uniform because everybody had to wear a uniform. He wanted to stand out, so he turned his uniform inside out. It's like a red, orange, jacket or whatever. So I'm not here to talk about the concept. The concept is fine, right? It's a relatable reference. Anybody who has watched, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is going to get that reference pretty much immediately. It's just a tie into, blazer being a gun. Okay. But again, this comes down to, okay, you have an idea. We'll say it's a creative idea. Now it comes down to execution, right? It's not just, can I be creative? How can I execute my bar in the best way possible, right? And if you think about like artwork, like a canvas, you can have an idea. Anybody can have an idea. I could have an amazing idea for, a piece of art. I wanted to get like a tattoo with, Link from Zelda, and he has like the MF Doom mask. Like, okay, I have an idea, all right? Now can I execute it? Can I actually get a piece of paper and draw that and make it resemble Link with a, MF Doom mask on? And the fact is, I have no ability to paint or draw. If I were to actually try to sketch that out, it would look awful, terrible. Because I'm not a painter, I'm not an illustrator. It's like if I had the idea that I want to draw an apple. I think most people can draw, an apple. Not necessarily a good one, but yeah, you just draw like a circle, like a little green stem. Maybe you draw a leaf on it. I think most people, when they look at that, they're going to be able to say, oh yeah, that's an apple. Sometimes people have a concept. It could be a good concept. And then they word it in a way that's close enough. People get it. Like, they understand what they're trying to do, but they don't actually execute it in a way that it's reflective of reality, right? You're not reflecting like the ability to draw an apple. An apple, you're actually, like, if you are a really talented painter or illustrator, you're going to be, focusing on the lighting, like the way that the shadow gives off, the way that the sun hits like a certain angle. Like, all of those things are very, very important. Having symmetry, all of those things are very important to the actual technique of being able to draw or, illustrate something. And in writing, you need to have that same level of technique, in my opinion. Now, many people disagree. When you don't have that philosophy, honestly, a lot of the bars that people are writing are very reflective of the way people would write text battles back in 2005, where they tried too hard to make, certain wordplay happen. It is not a good indication of somebody who is seasoned. That's kind of like how people write when they first start to write. And that's kind of a problem in battle rap, where I think there are a lot of people who don't necessarily know how to tell right off of the bat, like, the difference between somebody who's been writing for, 20 years versus somebody who's been writing for 2 days, right? I have literally seen somebody who has never really rapped before in their life go into a battle rap and still get crowd reaction. There's just this reality of, the larger and larger crowds that we get in battle rap, the less focus there is on that technique, on how, you get, it just is not realistic to expect, if we have a crowd of 1 million people or 2 million people watching rap battling, for all 1 million or 2 million of those people to be, focused on like the details and the technique and all those like really like tiny nuances. It just is not practical. And the same applies for anything. If you have boxing, right? If you have like 1 million boxing viewers, I'm not really a well-educated boxing fan. I couldn't call a fight between two people if one person doesn't get knocked out. I know basics. I know what a jab is. I know what a punch is. But I know what bobbing and weaving is. But I am not, in any sense of the word, qualified to judge a boxing match and say, oh, this person won or that person did not win, based on, just watching, two people throw jabs at each other, unless it's a very, very one-sided victory and you just see one person getting pummeled and the other person not, putting up any fight whatsoever. And so the more people you get in battle rap crowds, the more diluted it becomes, and that's fine. But if you're a battle rapper, it's kind of your job to know how to do these things, right? If you're an artist, regardless of whether people, fully can understand or appreciate every nuance of a painting, you should still be, interested in learning all of these different techniques in order to execute them and kind of bring your vision to life. The way that I see it, and the way that I've always seen it, is that if you're gonna have a punchline, you're supposed to have two meanings to the punchline, and both of those meanings need to make sense, right? So, for example, in the Fresh Prince bar, you have two different meanings, right? One of them obviously is talking about like a gun. The blazer will have your insides out. That makes sense, okay? You have a gun. The gun will cause your internal organs to be outside of your body. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong with that part of the bar. But then the double meaning is that the blazer will have his insides out, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So imagine if I'm literally just talking to somebody normally, naturally, the way people talk, right? And I say, yo, did you watch that episode of, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? The blazer had his insides out. That just doesn't make sense, right? Now, I did see somebody try to justify it, basically saying that, okay, we're actually giving the blazer now a personality. So the blazer is a him, right? So if I were to say, oh yeah, it's really cold outside, I'm going to grab my jacket and I'm going to put him on. I guess, yeah. I mean, I think if that's how you want to justify that bar, then fine. I'm not here to argue about this one particular bar, because this is a very common theme that I've seen in rap battling in general. This is something that happens very commonly in battle rap, And usually you can tell that, it comes from a lack of either effort to want to manipulate the bar until you eventually get to a point where it does make sense on both sides of it, or it just comes from a lack of, seasoning to understand that, this is kind of how bars are supposed to be structured in the first place. If it only makes sense on one side, then it's not really a double entendre, right? Double means two. Both of them have to mean different things. Really, the whole idea of a punchline is basically like a Trojan horse, right? Like you're disguising it as one thing to sneak it, into the audience's mind, and then, surprise, it's something completely different. In comedy, that level of, surprise is what invokes laughter. In rap battling, often it'll invoke, a reaction. So, for example, Phoebo had a bar where he said, "You blocking me made my point for me," like goaltending. And again, both sides of those make perfect sense. Whether you're talking about, oh, this person blocked me. Whether I don't know if it was on a DM or a cell phone, whatever. But you blocked me, therefore you made my point for me. Like that makes sense grammatically. You blocked me, made my point for me. Nothing about that is, it's not a sentence fragment. There's no weird verbs or adjectives out of place. It's all a perfect grammatical sentence. You could show it to an English teacher and there's no red marks on it. If you showed the blazer had his insides out to an English teacher, red mark. Okay, then the other flip side of it, you're just talking about, going to a basketball game or whatever, you blocking me, assuming that I'm actually a player that's playing, and I shoot the ball, you blocking me makes my point for me, like goaltending. That's what goaltending is. They blocked you, but it was an illegal block. That context is already inferred, but, and then you make that point for that person. And everything about that, again, it's grammatically correct. And when I say grammatically correct, I don't mean that you can't have slang or you can't have an accent or whatever way that humans actually talk. That's all that matters, right? You're basically writing in a way that is reflective of reality. The same way that if you are an illustrator, you are reflecting reality. Like I had a bar, those potato sack racing. Your body in a bag when we pull up with the arms and bounce, right? So there's, again, two different meanings, okay? Whether you're talking about, the violent aspect of it, okay, your body is in a bag, you're in a body bag, all right? When we pull up with the arms, so we're, driving in, that's slang, like we're pulling up. So we pull up with the arms and guns, obviously, and then we bounce, right? And we're leaving, okay? So again, your body in the bag, when we pull up with the arms and bounce, it makes perfect sense. But then also when you're talking about potato sack racing, right? Your body is in a bag, you're pulling up on the bag with your arms and you bounce, right? And so again, grammatically, all of that makes sense, right? There's no, it's not unintentional, right? It was completely, meant to be that way because, as a writer, you have a job, you come up with an idea, awesome, right? But then you have the job of being able to manipulate the language until it gets to a point where it does make sense, right? And for what it's worth, I'm not downplaying Hollow at all. Hollow is a fucking legend and has way more accomplishments than I will ever have in battle rap. I'm just, nitpicking this one particular bar because, you have to nitpick, especially if you're talking about who are the top 10, 20, whatever writers. If you have a bar and you put it under a microscope and it falls apart, then how in the world is that a top 10, 20, whatever bar? And when you talk about the difference between the top 10, top 20, whatever writers and all the thousands and thousands of other battle rappers, it can't just be creativity. It can't be. It can't just be like, oh, they have a bar about a movie. I saw that movie. I understood the reference. It must be a fire bar. Okay, well, that's it. That's two levels. But then you have all these different levels, right? You have creativity, you have relatability, then you have volume. What's on top of volume? Well, you can have, different angles tied into punchlines. Then you can also have, it's one thing to have volume where you're just doing like 2 bars. All right, now I'm going to move on to the next 2 bars. And I had a punch there, one time at the second line of each, set of 2 bars. Then there's also the ability to reverse engineer a punchline, right? Where you come up with a rhyme, you come up with a punchline or whatever. But then you say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and take that multi that I came up with and then come up with a punchline for that multi. So for example, Fresco, when he battled QP, had 4 lines where he's like, I go to your hood and set up shop like gentrification. and take everybody out like a special occasion. This could go left fast like professional racing. You're getting fucked up like playing chess with an Asian. Now, regardless of how you feel about the bars themselves, that is an example of 4 lines, 4 different punches, all of them rhyme with each other, right? So that requires that you do, number one of those punches were probably, not 100% sure, but probably written without a multi, right? So whichever one he came up with first, that was the baseline of it. And then he had to basically say, oh, this is my multi. So maybe it was gentrification, right? Then he had to come up with other rhymes with gentrification. Okay, special occasion. Then he had to come up with a punchline for a special occasion. So that is another level of writing, right? You have to do that 4 different times or 2 different times depending on your style. Some people do it 2 times. I think, a good sign of an incredibly good writer is the ability to do it 4 different times. If you can tie them all together and make it really clean, like that to me is an incredible 4-line setup. Some of those, weren't entirely tied together, but it's not even about, judging the content, but this is just another level that you can consider when it comes to writing punchlines. And because, it's one thing to come up with a punchline and then be like, okay, I'm gonna write a filler setup that rhymes with that punchline. It's another thing to actually have a rhyme and be able to reverse engineer a punchline that will, fit that multi. And just in case you're somebody that's kind of new to that type of thing and you want to try it out, a quick little tip for you is, to come up with nouns and proper nouns, basically that rhyme with, whatever your current punchline is. And then, usually you can derive some kind of association that leads to that punchline. So for example, you could have a punchline yada 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 like the end of the Matrix, or you've entered the Matrix. But when you have a multi like the Matrix, okay, it's a movie, but there are also a lot of associations with that movie, and that's an easy thing to come up with a punchline for. All you have to do is think of different associations with the movie, like okay, Neo, everything was in a virtual reality, blah blah blah. There have been thousands and thousands of lines about the Matrix. Now, whether you can come up with one that hasn't been said before, that's another story. But basically, that's the general idea, is that you have, some kind of noun, and then you can basically draw associations from it. But granted, that's not the only way to do it. But if you look at even that, 4-bar line setup that Fresco had, you have gentrification. Okay, that's a noun. Special occasion, also a noun. Professional racing, also a noun. And you don't necessarily have to have a noun, but that's, just a tip that, that is an easier way to come up with those types of associations. You start with the noun, you draw, different associations with that particular thing, and then you can basically concoct a punchline from it. One other layer of complexity that you could add, which isn't always possible to do, is you can take the noun, whatever that is, and then have a double meaning within the noun. So for example, I had a line, the setup line was basically something about your whole family can die, blah blah blah, and then the line itself was, keep talking, the auto reply. Yeah, you'll get the message when they're gone. So you could have phrased it, you'll get the message when they're gone, like an auto reply. But because, the auto reply is the noun in that particular example, it's basically worded in a way that, the noun itself is also part of a double meaning. And so that brings me to another topic, which I don't think I've seen anybody ever talk about, but I call it, concept extension. And I didn't invent it. Plenty of people do it. I've just never heard any terminology for it. The general idea is actually not that much different from a multi, right? Where you have 1 syllable, but you can extend that to 2 syllables or 3 syllables or as many syllables as you want to. So let's put this in the context again of a multi, right? 1 syllable multi would be something like, I'm blowing up like a puffer fish, right? Pretty basic, not very impactful at all. If you wanted to extend that, right, you could say something like, I'm blowing up in my defense like a puffer fish, right? You're just, it's the same bar, you just created more to it, right? And that's actually a line that is from Elijah Strait. Again, perfectly worded, both sides. Whether you're talking about a puffer fish, blowing up in its own defense, or you're talking about, me getting famous in my defense. Of course, you need some context to set it up, where it makes sense to say I'm doing this in my defense. But as far as, grammar is concerned, everything about that makes perfect sense. There's no weird words out of place. And then, so yeah, you could take that and you could extend it even further if you wanted to. What you would do is you think, okay, what else do I know about puffer fish, right? So for example, you know that puffer fish are underwater. Or maybe you know that, okay, Miss Puff from SpongeBob is a puffer fish. And you could say something like, something about, being in the whip blowing up in my defense like a puffer fish. That's not a full bar. It's not constructed yet. You would still need to come up with some kind of, setup where things kind of make sense together. But that's the basic idea. You're just, extending a concept. It started from this one syllable concept. You extended it and then extended it, kind of like a multi. All right, so what is another benefit from that? Well, now you kind of have permutations where you have different places where you can put each one of these, different ideas, or you can swap them out with different ideas. Rather than saying I'm blowing up in my defense, maybe you come up with, say, something else like Miss Puff, I'm blowing up, in a car, or whatever the, the actual idea is. You can swap things in and out in different orders now. And that, if you know anything about permutations and math, that means that there's an exponential growth for different possibilities of different ways to word a certain concept or a certain generalized series of ideas. And that allows for people to write things that frankly have never been written. So even if at the base of it there are some ideas that have been used before, you can still reword it and flip it in different orders in a way that it's possible that you can come up with things that nobody has ever said before. Like, so for example, I had a bar where I said, TSA, you see the tray, then drop everything from your shoes to your wallet because you can't go through with it. I promise you, nobody has ever done that bar before. People have absolutely done something like, oh, you have a tray, like a gun versus a tray that, you put your shoes into. Sure, somebody's probably done that. But nobody has ever done that full combination of, you see the tray, you drop everything from your shoes to your wallet. Okay, you're being mugged. You're dropping your shoes in your wallet. So you drop everything from your shoes to your wallet because you can't go through with it. Well, you can't go through the metal detector. Somebody might have done that, but nobody has ever done that combination of three different things and extended it into a punchline before. But, every basic fundamental, I'm calling it one syllable idea, but it's not necessarily one syllable. That's already probably been done before. Not 100% of the time, but quite often somebody somewhere has already said it. And not for nothing, regardless of which, side of the double entendre you're talking about, whether you're talking about going through TSA, you see the tray, you drop your shoes and your wallet into the tray because you can't go through with it. All of that makes sense grammatically. And then on the flip side, whether you're talking about a gun, okay, you see the tray, you drop your shoes and your wallet because you're being mugged, and then you can't go through with it. There was a setup, to that bar, basically implying that like they were, two bits to shoot a gun. And so in my head, these are all different things that I think about when I ask myself, do I think that this person is a good writer? Mainly if I look at it as an individual bar. And here's the thing, I'm looking at, a bar by bar basis. I'm not just saying, oh, this person had one really bad bar, I think they're a bad writer. It's more just about quantity. Like, how many times are you hitting the mark? How many times are you throwing a haymaker where everything is, done very well, and are you consistent at it? And if you are consistent at it, then yeah, I think you're an incredible writer. Otherwise, hey, there are some things that you could be working on. But at the same time, I'm just talking about writing here, but writing is only 50% of battling, in my opinion. And, if I have, two battlers, one of them is a 10 out of 10 performer and maybe a 5 or 6 in writing, and then the other one is, a 10 out of 10 writer, but, a 2 when it comes to performing, I'm going to go with the performer. Because, ultimately, it's not only about writing. You still have to be able to perform everything really well. You have to be able to, prepare and, be able to flow really well. And just as a note, sometimes, when you're trying to extend your punchlines the way that I've described, it's harder to have a really coherent flow. So, it's a balancing act at the end of the day between, getting off a very clean performance and also being able to write really well. Anyway, this video has already gone on for long enough. I wanted to talk about a couple other things that are completely irrelevant, but maybe I'll do that at some other time. Maybe nobody cares. I'm assuming most people don't care. But if you have actually made it this far, thank you for checking it out. And that's it. See ya.